And hatred, like war, is very difficult to corral and put back in its box. But from your perspective, how do we as individuals go about putting hatred back in the box where it belongs? What can we do as individuals to try to change the narrative?
Teach the lessons, to the extent it can be taught, of how self-destructive hatred is. Jefferson and Jameson know the vice chairman of our firm, Dr. John McGrath, who's a board-certified psychiatrist, very helpful in a political consulting firm. And I was embarked on an outrageous tirade one day, and Dr. John said, "You realize the only person you're hurting is yourself. This is self-destructive." To which I said, "Yes, and it's one of the few pleasures I have left." But not to make light of it, it's teaching people how destructive that hatred is. It's finding leaders who will bring out the better angels in us, who will say, don't spend your energy hating and plotting to destroy, but if not loving, at least respecting and working together to build.
He is a Washington veteran. His firm focuses beyond the Beltway, and he has worked in all 50 states for candidates and corporations. Long interested in the arts, he continues to serve on a theater board in his native Missouri. Mr. Ashford is chairman and CEO of the Hawthorn Group and a former country western disc jockey. And since, as my brother said this evening, politics is more of an art than a science, I think this is a very fitting venue. So you were a country western disc jockey. Let's start with that. What got you into radio?
The fact that I could sit inside in an air-conditioned studio, play records and talk, and get paid for it was just one of the epiphanal moments of my young life back on the Great Plains of Missouri. It sure beat baling hay. It's a huge problem for the Republican Party. Does it remain the Trump Party? What happens to anybody that dares not support him? Liz Cheney's finding out what the price is. There's a marvelous potential candidate for Senator Shelby's seat in Alabama. Question is, can she win a Republican runoff? No question she can win the general election. But is she not extreme enough? I mean, look at Alabama. This is a state that in the last two Senate elections, in the primaries, have chosen Coach Tommy Tuberville over Senator and Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and chose accused child molester Roy Moore over U.S. Senator Luther Strange. I asked my friend Joe Perkins, who's the smartest political operative, one of the smartest in America, and certainly the smartest in Alabama. I said, Joe, how does Roy Moore get votes, even in Alabama? And he said, Ashford, we are an outraged people, and he is the voice of rage. If we can develop massive battery storage, we will have gone a long way toward providing backup capacity. The rap that wind and solar always got was the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine when you need the electricity. We've come a long ways to fixing that, but Lord, we've got a long ways to go. We've prioritized finding out how to beat the other person, party, set of donors, instead of finding the common good.
We have some questions already. We have a question about energy markets. We also have a question about Georgia. So I'll start with the one about Georgia, and then we have a question about conspiracy theories, actually.
So the question is from Jefferson Freeman. Perhaps the Georgia voting rights bill seems unpopular even among Republicans by their own leaked internal polling. Can the GOP reverse this trend, or is this a fight that might hurt them worse than they win?
I don't think we know. Texas appears to be in the process of doing much of what Georgia has done. And while I think there are any number of fair-minded, decent-minded Republicans who think handing out cups of water to people who are standing in the sun waiting to vote in a hot primary is hardly a conspiracy that threatens the Republic. Not clear to me that and I'm trying to avoid the loaded words like the hotheads, but the fierce partisans in some of these state legislatures, in an attempt to take greater local control of the election process and address the allegations of voter fraud in the last election, won't push some of these matters through. And even if it bothers Republican voters, if it has the effect it's designed to have of restricting the vote, it will have accomplished its purpose.
Interesting. From Dana Burgess, are government subsidies distorting energy markets? And that's from the Zoom chat.
Dana, I've got to believe anytime there are subsidies, they distort markets. I don't know enough about it. I think one of the biggest problems is when the government steps in and picks winners and losers, when it passes regulations that favor some corporations, organizations, kinds of energy. Texas is looking right now at saying, if a wind company has sold 100,000 kilowatts, let's say, of wind, and it can't deliver on a given day, then it has to pay whatever the consumers have to pay to get that energy. Well, that may seem very consumer protective, but what will happen is wind companies won't come to Texas. They can't take that risk. And Texas, which needs more generation and more choices, not less, will be denied that. So I think the role of government in all of this, can the nuclear industry really survive if they don't come up with a nuclear waste site like a Yucca Mountain or regional sites? And to the extent the government's going to provide those sites, are they disadvantaging coal, oil, gas, wind, solar? So I think your question's dead on. Anytime there's subsidies, it is skewing the market.
We're getting some really interesting questions. Henry Siekowitz, in your opinion, what is the likelihood that the next stimulus package will be passed?
Oh, I think a very high likelihood. Now, don't hold me to what will survive in it, but given a Congress the opportunity to hand out vast sums of money, I don't know many Congresses with the self-discipline to limit themselves to only meeting the genuine and defensible needs. So I think, it's a tough fight for this administration. It's a 50-50 Senate. We were talking in the tape broadcast about Joe Manchin's awareness that he's a Democrat from West Virginia. Donald Trump carried West Virginia 68-29. He beat Biden in West Virginia by better than 2-1. So Manchin's got to be looking over his shoulder at all times. But the needs are so genuine, whether it is the collapsing bridges and the unfixed roads, whether it's the school systems, whether it's the unemployed parents who had to stay home to take care of their kids, whose employers have failed. The needs are so genuine out there that I've got to believe it'll pass.
Kamer Davis. Hi, John. I used to work with you back in the Matt Reese AT&T breakup days. How do you think voter targeting has changed since then in the era of social networks?
My God, Kamer, I saw your picture come up on the screen and I thought, there is no justice in the world. She hasn't aged a day. It is great to see you and hear from you. And I well remember our years together with the legend that was Matt Reese. Targeting has changed a couple of ways. Matt certainly pioneered the use of the geodemographic targeting, but today we have much richer voter histories. We know and can tie to individual emails and cell numbers, whether, Jameson, you have voted in 3 of the last 8 elections, 6 of the last 8 elections, 1, 7, how many? We also know the history of whether or not you vote by mail. So as more and more states have mail-in options, it becomes a much more complicated, it really requires, Kamer, 2 entirely separate targeting exercises. One, to deliver the campaign to the people who will vote early by mail. In some cases, that started as early, I want to say in Minnesota or Wisconsin, as early as mid-September last year, to the people who will vote on election day. So it has become far more complicated, but a far, richer targeting mechanism.
Yeah, the targeting is interesting, and there are some terrifying elements to all of that. Gloria Benedetto, a retired military acquaintance recently posted on Facebook the following, quote, "Civil war is coming, get ready." If this is a common belief, how do we curtail the momentum? How do we not give January 6th again? How do we not have January 6th again?
I don't know is the answer. It's going to take leaders who are committed to diffusing the rage that Joe Perkins talked about from Alabama, who will rise above winning every partisan victory, no matter what the cost, who will call out amongst us the better angels of our nature. The increase in the mass shootings, as horrific as it has been, probably concerns me less than the increase in gun sales and possession. There's a theory that says if enough people believe something's going to happen, it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. And a scary number of people are increasingly saying there will be a day of reckoning in which we will look over the parapets and be shooting at each other. It took America a long time to get to the Civil War, or the War of Northern Aggression, as it was called, where you and I grew up.
That's right.
But America avoided a lot of opportunities to avoid that war.
avoided a lot of opportunities to avoid the war.
Yeah, I mean, they made bad decisions. There were things America could have done that might have prevented that war. Maybe it was ultimately necessary to make this a single federal union, undissolvable, and to put an end to slavery. Maybe that could only have been done by a war that took more lives than all the other wars that America has fought from the Revolution through Afghanistan combined. And we're still living the consequences of it.
It's amazing.
I think what we're looking for is the next generation, the next cohort of leaders who are not of the bomb-throwing mode.
Amen. Because of your most recent words, I'm going to finish, Stephen, with your question, but go now to Bianca DeLille's question, which is, do you think the next generation of people currently involved and involved in the future will understand and return to the type of politics where folks can work together? What do you hear from the young folks, as we call them, down south?
I plead guilty, and I'm ashamed of it, to ignorance. I'm not sure, and I've got a daughter who's a sophomore at Auburn University in Alabama. I'm not sure I listen to or hear and comprehend what those young folks are saying. Their intentions and their judgment seems very good to me. They don't want the confrontation, and they see it as a waste of energy for us to be fighting and not accomplishing things. I think I worry most, Bianca, about the transitional generation. I look at a Roy Blunt, who's retiring from the Senate this year, Republican from Missouri, like General Ashcroft always accused me. I've never voted for Roy Blunt, but I consider him a devoted public servant. When he succeeded my very Democratic boss as Secretary of State, my old boss said, Roy Blunt will be a good Secretary of State because he's a good man and he can be counted on to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure you could get a Democrat to say that about a Republican today. But I look at the alternative U.S. Senator, Josh Hawley, and I look at the leading candidate to succeed Senator Blunt, and it's the disgraced former Governor Eric Greitens, who had to resign after 13 months in office. And smart money would probably bet on Greitens today. I just hope we can survive till we can get to that younger generation.
Which goes right to Stephen Lintner's question of how do we return to a period, interesting that he says period, how do we return to a period of civilized political discourse?
I think it is by raising public awareness that it is only through cooperation that what the people want can be accomplished. And it's by voters who will go to the polls and vote for the Doug Joneses, not the Tommy Tubervilles. And I don't mean to make that partisan. It is voters who will go to the polls and vote for the moderate Republican, not the screaming crazy Democrat. And heaven knows we have plenty of those in the Democratic Party. It's when the voters insist on moderation, on someone who will be focused on accomplishments. Stephen, like I am are old enough to remember the campaign, what was it, in about 1980, when giving control of the Panama Canal to Panama was going to be the end of Western civilization as we knew it. U.S. senators lost offices, governors lost offices because they were in the wrong party. The other thing, and Charlie Cook wrote about it this week, increasingly we are becoming an electorate that votes for the party, not for the candidate. And as we become more parliamentary in that sense, I think it makes it harder to achieve what Stephen's asking about, which is increasing that voter awareness and getting the voters' voice heard. I don't want screaming rhetoric. I don't want vicious sound bites. I want accomplishment.
There's a quote I like: everything in moderation, including moderation. I believe it's Oscar Wilde. Stephen Littner says, years ago you were a country Western disc jockey. Does anyone still talk about Western music as a specific type of music anymore?
I would direct you to Willie's Roadhouse on Sirius XM, where you can still hear the great Western music, interspersed with some of the current Nashville country sound. I will confess, but the king of country music still exists.
Well, there you go, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, again. Thank you, Sasha Sinclair, for stewarding this, running, womaning the ship, and thank you so much, John. Really appreciate the conversation.
Fun to do.
Thank you. I'd just like to invite everybody now to come off and off their muted audio and video, just to wave goodbye to John, because I know he'd like to see some of your faces, and to say hello and goodbye as we get everybody on camera. I like to do that. Wonderful. Everybody looks good. Someone's in their car. Oh my goodness.
Nice.
Drive safely, my dear. Oh, wonderful. There's Jefferson and Mary Jean and Lewis. There's Lewis, Bianca, Scott. Welcome. Thank you. I like to give a nice little wave shot.
Kamer, Mary Jean, Bianca.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. So I'd like to say just thanks for everybody for coming out. And that is a wrap. So thank you, John. Thank you, Jameson. This was a really great, interesting, fascinating conversation. So thanks a lot.
Namaste, y'all.
Namaste.
Namaste.